Hey, I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to share one big mistake that you want to avoid making when you're planning your literacy small groups in kindergarten, first, or second grade. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to do that now, and then also hit the little bell so that you don't miss out on any of the brand new videos that I post. Okay, so let's talk small group. What you do in your small groups really matters. A, because we're crunched for time, so there's not a lot of time that you have with your small groups. And B, because we know from the research that small group instruction can make a really positive impact on students, but of course it has to be the right kind of instruction. So the one big mistake that you want to avoid when you're planning your small groups is to avoid doing the exact same activities with all of your groups. Your lesson plan format, the activities that you use, should not be exactly the same with each of your groups, but let me explain. To make the most of our time in small groups, we have to choose the literacy skills that our kids most need personalized help with, so we're right there to help them, and the skills that they most need differentiation with, right? So thinking about what we're teaching in whole group and which groups need something slightly different. And there are definitely types of activities that you might do with all of or most of your small groups. For example, reading text, right? Your first grade teacher, all your kids are reading, so you might be reading some kind of passage with every single group. But that doesn't mean the passage is the same for all the groups. And it also doesn't mean that you're doing the same types of activities and have the same focus with your passage. But we want to avoid, number one, literally teaching the same skill or doing the exact same activity with multiple groups, because if that's the case, then it would be more efficient, more than likely, to do it in a whole group setting, right? And maybe you have to review with some groups, or maybe you extend it to make it more challenging for some groups. But if there's an activity or a skill that you're going to be teaching, teach it whole group because it's just faster. And then if you need to do some follow-up work in small groups, that's fine. But don't teach the same thing over and over and over again in small groups because that just doesn't make sense. And then number two, another trap that I used to fall in myself was having the same lesson plan format and template for all of my groups. For example, in kindergarten, we might all be doing a little warm-up and then reading a text and then maybe building some words. And I would have different activities for each group, but we were all doing the same basic types of activities. Now, all of your groups don't have to have wildly different lesson plan templates and formats that you're using. There are probably going to be a lot of similarities. But in kindergarten, maybe you have a group that's working on letter sounds. Well, they're not really doing much, if any, book work. Maybe you have another group that's working on CVC words and reading sentences with CVC words, but they're not quite ready for a decodable text. So focus on them where they're at. And then you have some other groups that are reading short decodable texts. But maybe some of those groups, maybe they read a decodable text and then they can do more comprehension extension activities. And maybe some of those groups, you have to proceed more slowly through the decodable text and really focus on the phonics skill associated with it. So you might be reading a text, but that looks a little different. The activities that you do and how you do them in every single group should vary. They should not be all exactly the same. Or let's do a second grade example, right? Maybe you have a group that's really working on learning their phonics skills still. And so there's a lot of decoding and encoding, spelling activities in that group. And maybe they're, reading a decodable text, but there's also plenty of, word level phonics work. But then maybe one of your groups is reading grade level text and they can spend more time on comprehension. Maybe they can even do a little bit of writing about the text. Now, of course, you're still teaching comprehension to the kids that are not there yet, right? That are still really working on phonics, but we're talking in this small group, that's what this group is ready for, right? And so you wouldn't want to stick to the same format for every group because they have different needs. And in some ways, this might seem obvious, right? But I know, personally, I've fallen into that trap of thinking okay, I'm gonna use the exact same format for every group and kind of force it to fit, when in reality, different groups need different things, right? Some might need more word level phonics practice. Others might be able to read longer texts and do more with comprehension and writing, and that's okay. We know as teachers that what is fair is not always equal. And of course, we have to provide that core, solid, whole group instruction too. But when we're talking about small groups, we really have to make the most of that time and figure out like, okay, when I only have these few minutes with this group, like what do they really need me for? And do that. And it's okay if the different groups have a lesson plan format that's a little bit different. If you want to see what my small group lessons look like, then you've got to sign up for a free trial of my literacy clubs. So when you sign up for a free trial, you actually get to log in and see kind of what the club looks like and get some examples of activities, both small group lessons and then also some centers activities for what the other kids are doing while they're not with you in small group, because that's important too, right? We want meaningful practice for the other kids. We want them to be engaged. That's just as important as what you're doing in small group. So my Literacy Club free trial has tons of activities that you can try out, kind of see how I set up my small groups. I'll include a link for the free trial in the caption of this video. Make sure to grab that before you leave. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Would love for you to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video.